Big films and TV shows usually have crews of hundreds, but a small film might just have a crew of a few people. And the most basic and cheapest method that many people start with is to do as many jobs as you can yourself. And not everyone lives in areas where there's lots of other people who can help them make films, so sometimes as filmmakers we have no choice but to go it alone. Now, I've worked both solo and with a small crew, and depending on the size of the project, I will choose which method to follow. On most of my own films, I've usually worked with between about 3 and 6 people, but sometimes I will have to be my own crew, like for my short film Beer and Nuts, as there was nobody else available, so it just depends on the setting. If you want to hear some great methods of making a film almost totally on your own, then I recommend reading Robert Rodriguez's book Rebel Without a Crew, or watch some of the behind-the-scenes videos on YouTube where he describes the processes he used in his low-budget feature El Mariachi. The technology has of course got so much better since the 90s, and so today it's even easier to do a lot of what he did if you are creative enough. Robert basically made the film with one camera, 2 lenses, one wide and one close, and a few cheap lights, and he would film everything himself documentary style. And as he was going to be the editor too, he would make decisions there and then about what to get. Anytime the scene advanced a little bit but then there was a mistake, he would just change the angle and carry on. This saved time, and because he was shooting on film, it saved lots of money. Then, because he couldn't afford a sound recordist, he recorded all of his sound himself after he had got the shots. Then he would sync this up with the picture when he edited, and because there's not much dialogue, it's not very obvious that the sound was done later. He edited the film and distributed it himself, and eventually got very lucky and built a career out of this. And this was in the early 90s, before platforms like YouTube, so think what you can do now with the same creativity. So self-filming and sound recording can be great to keep things cheap, but how do you also concentrate on the actors' performances, which is after all 50% of the director's job? Well, one technique I try when I'm filming solo is to behave like 2 separate people, first as a director and then as a cameraman. I rehearse fully with the actors but without the camera first, and get the performance completely right, and then I can pick up the camera and try and capture it as the cameraman. This helps to make it more like there are 2 people actually there, and it allows me to think of both the performance and the technical things. And then of course I can also play the takes back and judge them more objectively and see if I want to change anything. But being your own crew can be exhausting and very difficult, and depending on what equipment you are using, you may want at least a few other people to be on your crew. And not everyone wants to try and make a film on their own, because the more hats you wear, the less good you will be at doing any one particular job. If I'm trying to make the frame look nice or listen to the sound quality, it is going to take more of my attention away from watching the actors perform, no matter how much I wish it won't. So there's no better solution than to team up with other people. If I have the time and the money, I will normally get better results with, as a minimum, a separate camera operator and a sound recordist. So that way I can put my full attention on the actors and trust someone else to get good results with the picture and the sound. So if you're going to use a crew, you might want to get help with these, plus a few more roles. Again, you can often start by using friends and family for crew if they're willing to help, but be prepared, they might not be too interested in giving up all their weekends or free time for your film. A better method is usually to try filmmaking groups on platforms like Facebook in your town, country, or local area to find like-minded people who might want to collaborate. And if you do this, I would suggest always offering to work on other people's projects and make friends with them first, before demanding that they give up their time to help you. And if you work on other people's projects, then that will be more people you meet and more contacts you can make. You can use this time to find out who you click with and enjoy working with, and just as importantly, if there is anyone you would prefer to not work with. You could also try networking events in your local area, film festivals, anything like that where you'll meet like-minded people. It takes time, but if you keep meeting and working and offering to help other people, eventually you'll feel as if you have enough friends and collaborators to support you when making your film. So if you do want to properly crew up for your next project and find some like-minded people, agree on the roles and stick to them. I'm going to assume you want to be director or maybe producer-director, though you might want to work with a separate person as the producer, leaving you to be just the the director. This does really help because the producer organizes everything to make the film happen, leaving the director to bring it to life with their vision. And remember, everything the producer does not happen on its own. It means you can be working with your actors and crew instead of worrying about things like when everyone will get fed and what the transport arrangements are. Now here are the other roles you might want to fill if you don't want to try and do them all yourself. First we have the director of photography. This person works with the director to design the look of the film and is in charge of camera and lighting. On bigger shoots, the director of photography, also known as the DP or the DOP, will be in charge of a separate camera operator as well as the lighting department, but on smaller shoots, the DP and the camera operator are usually the same person. Next we have the sound recordist, who is in charge of capturing all the audio during the shoot. This sound is recorded separately into a separate audio recorder and not the camera. This means that the sound person can just worry about their thing and the camera person can just worry about their thing. And usually the microphones that the sound recordist will be using will be in lots of different places and not necessarily anywhere near the camera to get the best audio. If you want to team up with people for camera and sound, a great tip is to try and find people such as film students who already have their own equipment or at least access to equipment and are willing to use it in your film. They will already know how to use their kit and it can save you a ton of money. Next we have the assistant director, or on a big shoot, the first assistant director, or first AD. This is a very useful person who takes the organizational pressure off the director by basically being the military commander on the day, telling people what to do and where to go and what they'll be doing next. They are very useful people to know and they keep the director from spending their whole time shouting and getting stressed. They're also actually often the person who yells action through the megaphone and the director will actually just call cut. So those are the main roles to find, but if you want to assemble an even bigger crew, other roles can include the camera assistant. This can be a useful person for changing things like lenses and batteries and also for doing the clapperboard if you have separate sound. This is the famous thing you see people using on films, which is to record the information for each take and to sync up the audio with the picture, as it is both a visual cue and an audio cue. The production designer. This person builds the world and dresses the locations or sets to help tell the story. On larger films, they will probably be in charge of an art department who will build the sets and the props and anything else that appears on camera. Then we have the continuity or script supervisor, who helps the director not miss anything. This person will usually be sat next to the director making notes on the script and reminding the director about things that might be relevant from what they've already filmed or what they haven't filmed yet. Then there is the gaffer, who on big shoots is a separate person in charge of the lighting, and they will have a team of electricians and lighting people to help them. Then we have the grip, who usually builds or pushes the heavy stuff around and makes sure everything is safe. They are usually problem solvers and they are very useful people to know if you're doing a big shoot. Then we have the makeup artist, which is pretty self-explanatory, and the costume designer, which is also fairly obvious. For anything involving stunts, you would normally have a professional stunt coordinator who will be keeping dedicated stunt performers very safe. So hopefully that's given you some tips on large and small crews. So depending on how big your idea is and how many people you can persuade to help, get out there and find your crew, or try and be your own.